So we are going to go ahead and get started. Good morning to everyone. Thank you for joining us. You're here for the webinar, Empower Your Best Life, Maintaining a Healthy Heart and Lifestyle. And in honor of American Heart Month, Cona Elder Law has invited us to join Senior Partner Melissa Negrin-Wiener and her guest, Dr. Hal Skopicki, co-director of the Stony Brook Heart Institute, for an informative webinar about the dangers of putting your health on hold. My name is Elizabeth Aloni, and I'm with Schneps Media. Schneps Media is the largest local media company in the New York metro area. We publish over 80 newspapers, magazines, websites, webinars, podcasts, and events throughout Queens, Brooklyn, the Bronx, Westchester, Staten Island, Long Island, the East End, Philadelphia, and now Palm Beach, Florida. I'm really honored to have our illustrious guests this morning, and I want to welcome them now. First, please welcome Melissa Negrin-Wiener. Melissa is a senior partner at Cona Elder Law. Ms. Negrin-Wiener manages the Government Benefits Department, concentrating her practice in the areas of asset protection, Medicaid eligibility planning, estate planning, special needs planning, mediation, guardianships, and veteran benefits. She supervises the preparation of Medicaid applications for nursing home care, home health care, and community benefits, resolves complex Medicaid issues, and represents families facing a reduction in Medicaid home care hours and services. Welcome, Melissa.
Thanks, Elizabeth.
Next, please welcome Dr. Hal Skopicki. He's the co-director of Stony Brook Heart Institute, Ambassador Charles A. Gargano Chair in Cardiology. Dr. Skopicki is a strong clinical research and administrative professional with a passion for cardiology. He's been named by New York Magazine as the best cardiologist since 2006. Welcome, Dr. Skopicki.
Good morning, everybody. One of the best. My mom thinks I'm the best.
I'll second that. So thank you both so much for being here and sharing the importance of planning your future. So I want to get started with Dr. Skopicki and get started talking about the big elephant that's always in the room, which is to give us a bit of a COVID update.
Well, thank you, Elizabeth, and thank you, Melissa, for the opportunity to kind of address your audience. There's nothing I enjoy more than actually having that one-on-one or one with a group interaction with people to kind of give them a sense of not only where healthcare is right now, but where we're going. You're absolutely right. The first question that I almost always get asked is about COVID and where we're at and how we should be approaching it. And this has been a devastating disease in a lot of senses, right? Over 900,000 people killed, which means about 1 in 35. So everybody knows somebody or knows of somebody. We were really hard hit here in New York, as everybody realizes. And if you live in Suffolk County, I would say to you, you should be really proud of the job that all of the hospitals in our area did during this pandemic. We really bonded together. And if you look at the outcomes, Suffolk County did better than New York City, Brooklyn, Bronx, Queens, in terms of being able to get people through this pandemic alive. I'll also add a couple of things looking forward. One, we are on the downswing of this latest Omicron variant, and there doesn't appear to be anything in the offering that has us worried. And so looking forward to the next 6, 8, 9 months or foreseeable future, I think it really is a return to a new normal. And when I say a new normal, it's just being careful. It's nothing more than that. And then going ahead and doing the things that are in your best health interest. The second thing that I'll say about the COVID pandemic and what this really did to us, it supercharged science. It absolutely made us start to understand 25% of medicine that we had no concept about. And if you think about what that means cures for diseases unrelated to the virus in areas of inflammation and infection. And so I think the next 5 years is going to be full of new surprises and wonderful cures.
Wow, that is such a positive outlook. I know I felt myself have a sigh of relief as you were talking, and also the excitement of being able to uncover some important treatments or cures and things of other diseases. But I think it also allows us to open the door to focusing on other areas of our health. And one of those, obviously, is we are all concerned about our cardiovascular health. So what should we be doing and looking for? And how does that change in the different stages of our lives?
Yeah, so I love that question because this is one of those door opening questions that you really can talk to just so many different people. And the way that I like to phrase it is in terms of, your own travels through life. When you're a young kid, you're in your 10, 20, 30s or 40s, you are just out there testing the limits of your abilities. You are going, doing, playing, running, jumping, eating, in a way that it really makes you feel limitless. And that's actually the way it's supposed to be, that you are supposed to have an enormous heart reserve. And that when you go running and when you play sports and when you do the things that you're doing to be active, your body is supposed to respond to that. But it's also an incredibly important time to form habits. I mean, that's the time where if you get into running or you get into different types of sports, or you get into good dietary habits, that's going to stay with you for the rest of your life. And so even though that period of time is usually forgiving, you're setting up those habits that really will pay off in the end. When you hit your 30s, 40s, and 50s, that's when diseases start to set in. Hypertension, high cholesterol, diabetes. If you are a smoker, you're accelerating the process of everything dangerous that can happen to your body. When we take a look at cigarette smoking on top of any of those diseases, we're multiplying by 3 or 4 times the risk factor with just being a smoker.
Wow.
So that's the time to identify early those diseases or challenges that you have. If you have high blood pressure, getting with a professional that can help you in either a non-drug way or with medications, be able to deal with that hypertension. Same thing with cholesterol, same thing with diabetes. It's important to get with the smartest people you can find to help guide you through the process of making that risk to your overall health as low as possible.
That's really important, Dr. Skopicki, because I think many people don't go to the doctor and don't keep track of their health. And ignorance is not bliss in medical, in your healthcare. And it's you make such a good point. It's important to know this knowledge about your body and to find the best people who can help you.
Yeah, and I will say to you, something that I say to patients all the time that seems just new to them is this concept that nature does not want us to live forever. That this concept that I'm going to do what's natural. Natural, actually, and I don't mean this in a negative way, natural is actually dying.
Mm-hmm.
Unnatural is to live a long and incredibly healthy life. And what do I mean by that? Natural is dying. If you think about it from a species point of view, right? After you finish making babies and after you finish protecting the herd, all you're really doing is eating the food supply of the ones making the babies and protecting the herd. If you want to be relevant in a natural way, if you want nature to protect you, you have to continue protecting the herd. You have to continue showing nature that you are active, that you are vibrant, that you are engaged. And that's where exercise, eating healthy, and attacking the diseases that may start to tip you into your natural exit becomes so incredibly important.
That's a really great way to look at it. Thank you.
And when we talk about, sorry to go on, but when we talk about it, once you've identified those diseases, right? And now you're in your 40s, 50s, and 60s, this really becomes the time where if you're taking care of yourself, you're putting money in the bank for your future. A common thing that I tell patients is that, when you're going through your working years, right, you take money and you put it into your retirement accounts. Why do you do that? Why don't you just blow that money right up front and have the best time you could possibly? Because you want it to be there for later. You want to have something that if things aren't going as well, you have it there. And that's exactly what doing exercise and eating healthy and attacking your disease is all about. You're putting money in the bank for later so that health that you've built up for all those years, you can tap into in your 50s, 60s, 70s, and later.
Great. And that's a great analogy because I don't think people think about that. It's almost like, oh, there's a problem, let me address it, as opposed to thinking, let me put things in the bank so that I can rely on them as I grow older. And some of these disease or changes in your body that are natural come about, our bank account is full to deal with them.
That's exactly right.
I love that analogy. So what can we do to build that bank?
So, we talked a little bit about the individual aspects. So I'll start off with the thing that I think is the fountain of youth, exercise. I think that people have looked all, throughout the globe. They've gone back 5,000 years for Chinese herbal medicines. They've looked in South America and Africa for berries that are antioxidants. The fountain of youth is exercise. Again, if you think about it, nature wants the animals that are moving, that are strong, that are able to participate to survive the longest. So daily aerobic exercise is important, at least 20 minutes. Why did I just throw the word in aerobic? Another one of those throwaway lines that I love to use is, do you ever see a lion in the jungle lifting weights? Do you ever see a monkey doing push-ups, sit-ups, and squats? In the animal kingdom and throughout evolution, it's always been aerobic. I'm not telling you not to lift weights. I'm not telling you that isn't an important adjunct, but concentrate on aerobic exercise because that shows your reserve heart function. The blood that's flowing through your blood vessels takes away the inflammation for those blood vessels. Those blood vessels go to the brain and potentially can cause strokes. Those blood vessels go to the kidneys and can cause damage. Those blood vessels go to the heart itself and can cause arteries to block up. So aerobic exercise, top of the list. Don't participate in habits that that will destroy your blood vessels and your heart. Cigarette smoking at the top of the list. And then dealing with the diseases that genetically have been programmed into you or that through your diet have now appeared. Diet is, I think that the revolution in diet will be amazing over the next 50 years. And the reason I say that is because I think we know next to nothing about diet. That if, again, when I'm just musing with patients or with family members, I always bring up the fact that my heritage is Polish. We never saw a kiwi. We never saw a pineapple in 100,000 years of evolution. I didn't know, I knew root vegetables, during evolution. So if I were to marry somebody from Hawaii who only knew pineapples, papayas, and the like, what is natural for us to eat? What did we evolve on? What did our bodies evolve on? So when it comes to nutrition, I think we're going to find out an awful lot in the next half century. But the advice that I can give you right now, stay as natural and as unprocessed as you possibly can. When you're eating meats, eat the lean meats. We weren't meant to be hunting down these incredibly fattened meats. They didn't come with sauce. They didn't come, all decked out. Vegetables, across the board. Those were the things that were available. And if you want to go ahead and kind of really approach your plate the correct way, put the vegetables as the largest part of your plate, and then the other stuff to treat yourself. The meats or the fruits, the other things. And, the last thing I'll say on that is, did you ever bump into a cake in the jungle? Are there cupcakes on trees? Right. Those are things you treat yourself with, but can't be a staple of your diet. because they are something we didn't evolve on. So, I can go on, but it really comes down to, if somebody identifies a disease, don't go ahead and say, I'm fine. Yeah, I have a little high blood pressure. That's a warning sign. I have some diabetes, but it's under control. You have to make sure that you have it perfectly under control so it doesn't interfere with your life.
Really great advice. These are all, like what you said, putting it in the bank. So it's, as you're talking about the food, I can hear the energy of, oh, but I like to eat that way. But I think it's not about limiting yourself. It's about that bank. When you keep thinking about, what am I putting into the bank? If you could think about that quickly at every meal, what am I putting in the bank for later? How am I being not natural and living longer? That can help you make the right decisions. And how important that comment you made about staying on top of any kind of disease or issue that your body is showing you, because your body is showing you a problem that needs to be addressed, and how critical it is to address it fully.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Elizabeth. And I think the way that I phrase it to patients, because just putting the next barrier in front of them, their high blood pressure, their diabetes, the limitations that they might have in exercising, just putting that in front of them seems like a daunting task. And what I would challenge all of the people who are listening today is, think about what the goal is. The goal is not to take care of your hypertension. The goal is not to take care of your diabetes or to exercise. The goal is living your best life. The goal is going ahead and hitting your 60s, your 70s, and your 80s healthy, being able to enjoy all the new developments that are in medicine or in the arts, or that are in sports, things that you love to do. It's about being around to encourage the people that you love, the people that you want to be there to be able to guide and help. It's the people you want to leave a legacy to. So if you are that grandfather, that great-grandfather that's present, what an incredible advantage you're giving your families. So the goal becomes important, and taking care of your health, especially your heart health, along the way becomes the means to get that. That's how you leave a legacy. That's how you leave something beyond, just your years here.
Ooh, I love that. I have chills from thinking about that. If you could think each meal is living a legacy, leaving a legacy. If you could think of each step you take in exercise, or whatever you want to call it, if you don't like the word exercise, in movement, if you can think of each step as leaving a piece of leaving your legacy, poof, I think that's very, very powerful.
Yeah, if one of your listeners would like to create the app of how your health and your legacy bank account grows as you're contributing by eating the right thing, by doing what's right with your exercise, by doing what's right. I mean, we are curing diseases right and left. We are understanding diseases right and left. The reason I am at Stony Brook is because I love the passion by which our researchers and our clinicians are going about trying to make people healthier, live longer, and find those cures.
It's exciting stuff that's going on, and you need to get in the game. You need to get in the game of filling your bank, not just of dollars, but of good health and good habits. At any age, you can start it. Is that true? Let me ask that, because I'm not the doctor, but what if, I'm a woman who's in her 50s. So, is it too late when you're in your 50s or your 60s? I mean, what do you say to that?
Yeah, so I love that question, because you almost are answering your own question, right? What you're saying is, I want to be healthy. I want to have those golden years. I don't want to be the person who's missing from the table. I don't want to be the person who can't participate in the activity. It's never too late. If you think about it from the point of view, whatever disease is in your body right now, but you have the ability to change the course, to live an alternate universe of your life, simply by going ahead and starting to adopt those lifestyles. I can give you a couple of quick pointers if you'd like, just in terms of things. So take diet, for instance, right? Everybody weighs the amount that they weigh because of the answer to one simple question. What do you feel like eating? You turn to your spouse or you turn to your kids or whatever, and you ask that question at some point around 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And everybody then says, I don't know, what do you feel like? And you go through that dance almost every day of your lives. I can see a whole bunch of people nodding their heads.
Yes, yes.
And if you think about it, the answer to that question determines how much we weigh. Because we answer that question with the things that we like. So here's a simple exercise. Take a piece of paper, make 4 columns. The first one, breakfast, the second one, lunch, the third one, dinner, and the fourth one, snack. And write down in each of those columns everything that you love to eat. I mean, everything. The pancakes, the waffles, the yogurt, the egg, the cereal. Just put it all out there. And then take your handheld device and say, hey, Siri, how many calories in a slice of pizza? And Siri will tell you 370. And write that down. Take a second piece of paper, write breakfast, lunch, and dinner and snack columns, and draw a horizontal line in the middle. Everything that you like to eat that has lower calories, put it at the top of your list. Everything that you like to eat that has higher calories, put it at the bottom of your list. And then just try to live more often in the top part of your list. That's the simplest way to start just shedding calories. I had somebody, and this is one of those true things. I had somebody lose 271 pounds simply by just eating the things that they liked that were in the top part of their list. Because you'll find that things like carrots or Brussels sprouts or whatever that vegetable is that you like lives in the top part of your list. And if you start dominating your plates with those things, then all of a sudden it becomes something you can do. The exercise, always start off with things that are first a checkup with your doctor to make sure if you are at risk, but then to go ahead and start off with 20 minutes of walking. And if your body is starting to tell you you're short of breath, the question is, are you deconditioned or is something else going on? So stay at that level if you start to have symptoms and do that for a while. And as soon as those symptoms start to back off, then you can start increasing your activity. Don't go ahead and throw a headband on, put on spandex, hop onto the Peloton or treadmill and decide that you're 18 again and try to see how much reserve you actually have to test your mortality. That's the wrong way to do it. Build up to it. And then again, when we talk about the other things about stopping smoking, the one fact I'll give you is that you'll be surprised to know how many times you have to stop smoking before you actually stop for good. And the average number of times is 11.
Wow.
So when patients say to me, I've tried, and it doesn't work, I'm like, are you at 11 yet? Because it's going to work. It's going to work. You just have to stick with it. And again, you just have to have a goal of why you're stopping smoking, right? It's that living your best life. It's encouraging others because you're around. It's leaving a legacy because you're there for those people. That's what you're putting into the bank.
I love that. And Denise just said, this is the best idea ever, the food list. So that really is terrific. Giving people that's so Skopicki, giving people these very specific things they can do. And I think with the food list, the thing that you made such a great point is it's things you actually like to eat. They're just the better choice of the things you like to eat. Dieting doesn't mean you eat everything you hate. You can be excited about your diet, just make better choices. And you gave that to us.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And then what you find out is that you as you get smaller, you're able to move easier. Things that were harder become easier. You start to explore new foods. You start to explore cheats to take away some of those calories with things that you actually find that you like. And again, you can visit the bottom part of that list. I'm not saying you can't go to Carvel and have a vanilla milkshake. You just can't have it every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And once you've gone to the bottom part of your list, psychologically, you'll realize that you were there and you'll want to be in the top part of your list.
I love it. I love it. So, now we have some actual steps we can take to help our cardiovascular health. There's also an importance in planning, and from a financial perspective, from an estate perspective, and something that can touch your heart from an emotional perspective as well. And I want to turn to Melissa and talk a little bit about, planning for your future when it comes to your estate planning and critical advanced directives. Can you share with us a little bit about some of these things that we can do to plan to protect ourselves and our families?
Sure. Dr. Skopicki, I'm so inspired. I can't even tell you. I feel like I'm ready to take on the world from your speaking. But yeah, I mean, such a common thread, really, listening to the doctor talk about, doing things earlier to have them in the bank for later. So I may have to steal that, but we're constantly advising clients about advanced directives. They're so important for everybody. That's a power of attorney, a healthcare proxy, and a living will. But what I always tell people is, I see people coming to do these documents in their 70s, 80s, and 90s when they're sick, when something happened, when I have to do, a lot of discussion and digging to make sure they have capacity to sign the documents because they've had a stroke or they have the beginnings of dementia or whatever the case may be, where really everybody, once they turn 18, they have nobody with the legal authority to handle anything for them, from financial to medical to anything else, because now they're an adult and they're making their own decisions. So, what happens, the things we never want to think about, the 19-year-old who has a car accident, or the 25-year-old who, I don't know, has some sort of sports injury, or, unfortunately, like we just had a friend in their 30s who died from cancer. But, these things that we don't like to really think about, but they happen. And if you get those documents in place when you're supposed to, which is as soon as you turn 18, and have nobody, as your legal authority, like your parents, to make those decisions for you, then you're set because you have them. And, as time goes forward, maybe things change and you need to adapt and change your documents, just like, as your health may decline or something may pop up, you need to adjust and shift with whether it's medication or anything else. It's the same type of thing. You get married, you want to change the person on your document to your spouse, but it's so important to have those documents in place when you need them, not to start, like at 80 years old, ramping up to do all this stuff. It comes to a point where you're going to run into a lot more problems. And just as a quick overview, I can speak about the documents themselves. The power of attorney is where you name someone to make financial decisions for you if you can't make your own. And it's not just about paying bills. It's about, dealing with insurance companies is a big one, especially for younger individuals. If there's an accident or something like that, and someone needs to deal with your insurance company on your behalf, or, later on handling banking and asset transfers and asset protection. If somebody needs to go on Medicaid benefits, even applying for those benefits, you need to have somebody named to do those things. And that's a reason why you don't want to download these documents off the internet, because you're not going to have all of those modifications in the document that you would see with an estate planning attorney, because we know what obstacles are out there. We know what people are going to run into. So we know what needs to be in those documents. And then there's the healthcare proxy. Now, New York State has the Family Healthcare Decisions Act, where there is a list of people that doctors, hospitals, they can go to say, what do you want me to do for so-and-so? They don't have a healthcare proxy. It's a list of a guardian and then a spouse and then children, it's this, but it's not who you choose. When you sign your own healthcare proxy, you're choosing who you want to make those decisions, because it's not necessarily going to be in the order of this list that, that's given to us. So it's nice that it's there, but it is not the ideal situation, because when somebody in New York State is making healthcare decisions, those decisions could include end of life decisions, and you want the person you want making those decisions, the person who knows what your wishes are. I can't tell you, and I can't stress enough, how often we deal with these issues with younger people, where we're doing guardianship proceedings because there's no power of attorney and there's no healthcare proxy. And, we see a lot of car accidents, motorcycle accidents, these tragic things, but people need decisions to be made. And when you don't have these documents in place, whether you're a younger person or an older person who's perhaps suffering from dementia or Alzheimer's and now can't sign these documents, that's the only choice a family has, is to bring a court proceeding. And let me tell you, the dirty laundry comes out in these court proceedings. Families don't come back from it when there's infighting with the family. So it can all be avoided simply by, like Dr. Skopicki said, doing what you need to do and putting it in the bank. And it's really, you could really use that analogy for so many different things.
It's true. And, I love that you made the point about at 18, because I think so often we forget as parents or family members that 18 is a big difference. And even though your child may be in college, and you still may be supporting them, to the state, they're an adult. You cannot make those decisions for them. And just as Dr. Skopicki was saying, that there are different things at different times, you need to get started as soon as possible with these things. And this is something that really families need to teach each other, because I think it's really true in these advanced directives and healthcare proxies, and that we don't think of them very often until much later in life. And if you're on this webinar right now, ding, ding, this is a sign that you need to get it in place. But to also let everyone in our families know that really at 18, yes, we can do the celebration. Yay, we're an adult. But also with that comes responsibilities and comes thought for putting in the bank your health and, what is best for you in healthcare decisions.
Right.
So I'm so glad that you bring that, you're talking about that and letting people know how important that is to consider from 18 on. And if you don't have it in place, today's the day.
Because, and like I said, it's really very much in line with, as your life goes on, what you need to do. When somebody is 18, really it's up to their parents to make sure they have these in place. No 18-year-old I know is going to say, oh, I was just thinking I should have a power of attorney. Well, maybe one or two, but not many people that I know. And that's all they need. And then as they get older, they get married, they have kids, they need a will, they need to make sure there's guardians for their young children. And then as they get older and maybe they're thinking about retirement, they need to start thinking about asset protection, irrevocable trusts, transferring things, making sure that their assets are going to be there for them as we live longer and longer and longer, with all the wonderful advances in medicine. So it's very much intertwined, and it's really, where you are at that time in your life, what you have to think about.
And it's important at any stage to think about it. I mean, I know I have a lot of friends who, have children and say, I don't even have a will. I don't even have that in place. And I know that when I did that, so like you said, sometimes it can be hard to think about. It can be, people don't want to think about it. But let me tell you something, it's on your shoulders. Because as a parent, as an adult, you know that this is a potential. And I know that when I got all of my documents in place, it was like a weight lifted off my shoulders. It was putting a lot in the bank and knowing that I had protected my children.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that money can't buy. That's a good feeling. And I think the same thing, it can be said about healthcare, knowing that you're focusing on your heart health and that you are taking care of yourself and knowing what's going on in your body. It gives you a peace of mind that you really cannot be matched.
Yeah, if I could also just add in, There is no evidence whatsoever in the medical literature that thinking about these things causes them to happen.
I love it.
And I cannot believe how many people look at me and say, no, I don't want to talk about it because, I'll jinx myself or I'll create something. It's half the population out there. I promise you, we've exhaustively looked at it in the medical literature. You going ahead and having a will, a power of attorney, or advanced directive, none of those things are associated with earlier disease or earlier death. I promise you that.
We now have an official word that we all need to know that it is official. It will not make your time any sooner.
You should try talking to someone about pre-planning their funeral arrangements. That's a tough one.
Yeah, it is the same concept, but I will also tell you, because of what I do, I take care of patients with advanced cardiac disease. So I'm around those families, I'm around those decisions constantly. And I can't begin to tell you how many times that if you haven't made your decisions known or you haven't put it in writing, how many times your family suffers around your bedside. I can tell you that I don't see people, quote unquote, pulling the plug on people because that's, it was written in their advanced directives, because there's always nuance to it. There's always is this reversible? And if it's reversible, people don't pull the plug, as we say just by the by. But what I will tell you is I have watched families deteriorate. As somebody says, no, dad would have wanted this. And another person says, no, dad would have wanted it. No, dad would never have. But dad, yes, dad said to me once, like there was a Tuesday in February, 40 years, the amount of stuff that goes into it. You are taking the burden off of your family. You are helping them make the right choices for you by going ahead and getting involved with these decisions and putting them on paper. But again, I can't stress to you, the paper isn't what has them pulling the plug prematurely.
Thank you.
Right. And that's that brings me to the third document, which is the living will, which in New York State is not a requirement, but so important as exactly what the doctor was just saying. It's where you put your wishes down, while you have the capacity to make them, and you can think about, how you want things to go and what you want to happen if you're ever in a position where there's an end of life decision to be made. And it serves as instruction to your agent, instruction to your family. It takes so much of the burden off because it's in black and white. So it really helps your healthcare agent to be able to say to the brother or sister who kind of chimes in and says, that one time when Aunt Sally was sick, dad said, blah, blah, blah. They have this piece of paper and say, well, listen, this was, this is what dad's wishes were. It's witnessed, it's notarized, it's, and it's really a helpful piece of paper to have.
That's important. So let me ask each of you, Dr. Skopicki, let me ask you first, what is the next step? Someone is, we have these wonderful, wonderful attendees here today. They're hearing about heart health. They're hearing about how important it is. What should be the next step for anyone who's interested in making sure they keep their heart healthy?
So I'm one of those people who, no matter what I do, I start off with the end. What's the end goal? And we talked about that. The end goal being living your best life. The end goal being encouraging others and being around and taking care of the things that you need to take care of. Write down those end goals first. And then what I tell people is take the step right before that. How do you live your best life? Well, you're physically healthy, you're mentally sharp, you're able to do those things. And then take where you are right now and say, how do I get to that step before the goal? And so when you go ahead and you take a look at being heart healthy, what is the first step that you have to do? You have to identify, do you have any risk factors right now that can interfere with getting to you being heart healthy? Stony Brook has an online questionnaire that goes ahead and tries to help you understand what your heart health risk is. Or just scheduling an appointment with your internist and saying, listen, today I want to focus in on my heart health. Where am I at? What are my risks? They'll calculate a risk score that will tell you your risk of having a heart attack in the next 10 years. They will go ahead and identify those things that you are doing in your life, in your diet, in your exercise, etc., that may be putting you in a slightly higher risk. And then going ahead and figuring out that strategy. How do I attack that problem to give me the lowest possible risk? We know that 1 out of 3 people will die of heart disease. It's just, this is what it is. You cannot escape the fact, again, that it ends one day. So the idea is to minimize that risk of developing heart disease. Identify your risk factors. If you have no risk factors, then go ahead and put yourself in the habit of living the best cardiovascular life you can. I said it before, everybody has taken money and put it into a retirement account, or at least most people have. You don't just take your money and just blow it, as soon as you get your paycheck, just blow the entire paycheck. Everybody tries to put something away. And you're doing it for later. So you have to, on a daily basis, be putting something in to enjoy it later.
That's great. That's great. So find out your why, get your baseline of where you are, and address those issues immediately, seriously, and consistently.
With a smart person. My dad always told me when I was going through medical, through high school, college, he said, always study with somebody smarter than you.
I love that. I love that. Well, I did put in the chat how to get in touch with Stony Brook Cardiology. So you can go ahead, and I will be sharing that in an email that you'll all receive tomorrow. But that is what Dr. Skopicki was talking about in terms of being able to go on the Stony Brook website and be able to assess your heart health and be able to find someone who is smart and able to give you the right steps. Thank you so much. Yeah. Melissa, I want to turn, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, or any healthcare provider. It doesn't have to be Stony Brook. Find somebody you trust, find somebody that is convenient to you, find somebody, again, that's smarter, and have that person work with you.
Terrific. Thank you so much. Melissa, and what would be the next step for people who are looking to get their paperwork in order to protect themselves and their family? What would you say that next steps are?
Sure. So for individuals who have these documents already and are sitting and listening to this and kind of saying, oh yeah, I have that. I definitely would recommend taking a look at what you have, seeing how old it is. We often tell people to, have a checkup. Just like, going to the doctor, have a checkup every, 2 years or so, 3 years, look at what you have, look at how life has changed and things you might want to change. And keep in mind that the documents change. All right. Power of attorney just underwent a major change again. It was 2010, then happened again this past year. So there might be some updates that need to be made or things that need to be addressed. So definitely don't just kind of push it off and say, I already have those, I'm good, because you may not be. And for people who don't have them, we're very easy to reach. I know you put our information into the chat. People can call our office. They can go on the website, conaelderlaw.com. They can email me directly. I believe you put my email in the chat, and ask any questions they want. Come in, have an appointment. We're doing virtual appointments, in person, whatever anybody needs and feels comfortable with, and we can assess the situation and determine what you need.
Fantastic. Fantastic. I think what you both are saying, it's important to address these things and not put them for later. And you're here for a reason. I truly believe you signed up for this webinar and showed up for a reason. And it's your first step in making these steps that are so critical for your happy future. So I will be sending these contact information to you via email. It's also in the chat. But I'd love to get to some of the questions. We have some great questions from our attendees. So let's do that. Let me just do. Diana wanted to know, is there an age you recommend start seeing a cardiologist?
So the answer to that is no, one size doesn't fit all. If you're having palpitations, I think you'd like to see a cardiologist. If you're having shortness of breath with activities that used to not give you shortness of breath, I think you want to see an internist, but also make sure that it's not your heart. If you're having chest pain or pressure, where you notice anything radiating down your arms or into your neck with activity, those are reasons to see a cardiologist. If you want to go for a heart health checkup, where the whole focus, when you walk into that room, the doctor sees a large heart in front of them and not all the other parts of your body, then go to see a cardiologist. But you have to have a good discussion with your cardiologist. You have to know why. Doctors should not be just going ahead and saying, yeah, we're going to give you a full battery of tests. That's in cardiology, that's not a thing. We don't check where there isn't reason to be suspicious. And so that's part of, I think that relationship with your doctor. For your bowel health, you should get a colonoscopy after the age of 40 or 45 years of age. You should be having your cholesterol checked up, et cetera. But I think people mistrust all of the testing that starts to take place. So you have to have that conversation about what are your risk factors, what are you afraid of, and what is the testing leading you towards.
Great, thank you so much. Julie wanted to know, to Melissa, how often should one update their documents, the documents that you're referring to?
So again, we typically recommend that people reevaluate their estate plan maybe every 2 to 3 years, unless there's some sort of major change in their life. Like if they get married or they buy a house or they retire or they have children, those types of things may warrant something, sooner than the 2 to 3 years. But that's typically what we recommend.
Great, thank you. So David, back to heart health, said that we were taught to avoid saturated fats. Now I read that polyunsaturated fats can be unstable, leading to free radicals and cellular damage. So which fats are dangerous, which are beneficial, and should we increase healthy fats?
Yeah, so remember how I told you that what we're going to learn in the next 50 years is going to make us seem like cavemen in terms of nutrition? This is one of those things where I have now been in the field long enough to watch the entire world keep spinning around itself in terms of dietary recommendations. The advice that I'm going to give you is basic advice. Think about the fats that are available throughout evolution for the last 100 or 80,000 years. What has been around, right? When we go ahead, and I noticed in the chat, somebody asked about intermittent fasting.
Yes.
So I'm going to tie it in together.
Perfect.
When we were back in the day, back before refrigeration, back before farming, really the large part of our existence, we didn't wake up in the morning and there was food available on the table. Breakfast wasn't the most important meal of the day. And this whole concept that we are supposed to be eating 3 meals a day is something we made up. And I think what you're going to see is that during evolution, you woke up in the morning and then you spent the day trying to find food. And as soon as you found the food, you ate it. So this concept of intermittent fasting is based on that there is no food available early in the day evolutionarily, and that eventually you get to a point where you've sequestered enough for you to be able to eat. Now we start to talk about things like saturated fats. And here I'm going to go a little bit off of what most of you are used to hearing. If you think about it, right, there's not a lot of saturated fat in nature, right? There actually is no trans fats. When I say trans fat, what am I talking about? Baked goods, shortening, microwaved anything. There are no trans fats. And those are really the ones you're trying to avoid, fried foods. Those are the ones that just come up with a scenario where in nature that could possibly be, that you could have evolved to handle that well. Now, when we talk about saturated, monosaturated and polysaturated fats, these are the more natural types of fats, and we're trying to kind of engineer them with the oils that we take in. Again, those oils were all present within the context of us eating the meats or the vegetables, that we were taking in. It wasn't we took a bottle out, in the prehistoric era and then poured a little bit of oil on top of our food. So why do I bring that up? Because the fats that we took in go into our bodies, and the body needed a storage depot for it. And you know what that storage depot was? Your arteries.
Mm.
That bad cholesterol, the LDL that we always talk about, that's what took the cholesterol and put it into your arteries for storage, because you had a good cholesterol, HDL, that was going to pull the cholesterol out of your arteries. And you were going to be able to use it up on a daily basis, in, out, in, out, in, out. And then God created the hamburger and McDonald's, and it was all over, because now we had an unlimited amount of polyunsaturated, monosaturated fats, and all of a sudden, the excess of them is what overwhelms our bodies. So your question is a good one. And when you talk about saturated fats and is there a better saturated fat or unsaturated fats, eat a healthy diet. Avoid the trans fats in your diet. And then let science evolve. Don't try to create a hypothesis and then 5 minutes later you're going to have to change it. Just be smart in terms of the way you approach your diet.
Great advice. Thank you so much. I have a question for Melissa. Marie wanted to know, if someone's appointed power of attorney, how long does that status last, and does it need renewals?
Very good question. So technically that status will last until either the individual who named you as power of attorney passes away, or they revoke the power of attorney. And if they do revoke the power of attorney, they have to do so in writing. And that document has to be given to the agent and also anyone who that power of attorney document has been given to. But short of that, I wouldn't, again, just let it ride if it's the same person that you want, all along. It's a good idea to check in, make sure the document hasn't changed, that there's been a new draft of the document in place, or, anything else that you might run into. So it'll be good for as long as you want it to be, or until you pass away.
And just another follow-up question with that. Joni wanted to know, where do you suggest keeping your documents? She said she had heard the vault at the bank and now hearing not. So where do you recommend people keep these documents?
So vault at the bank is not a great idea, because the person who needs to get into the vault may not be able to when they need to. So a lot of times we'll see where people pass away and the will is in the safe deposit box, and the executor will go to the bank, and guess who's not on the safe deposit box, as just an oversight. I mean, people, typically they're on their own safe deposit box and that's it. So that can be an issue. I'll tell you what we do is we keep all original documents here in a fire safe vault of our own that we have. And we give our clients attorney certified copies, because you can have as many of those as you want, and they're as good as originals. Now, not necessarily to probate a will, unfortunately, but we keep the original wills here in our office. If you're going to keep them at home, it should be in something that's fireproof, floodproof. Make sure somebody else has the combination to get into it. But ideally, leaving it with your attorney is probably the safest thing to do. Great
advice. So Dr. Skopicki, we have a couple of questions about atrial fibrillation. Livia wanted to know what your recommendations are, and Judith wanted to know, is this something that one could get over, or is this something that's a lifetime illness?
Yeah, so atrial fibrillation it's a very common disease, and the incidence increases as people age, especially in those people who have high blood pressure. What it is based on the electrical system of the heart. At the top of the heart, there is a center that every second of your life goes ahead and says, we need a heartbeat. That center then releases electricity to the middle part of your heart. And as it travels from the top to the middle part of your heart, it electrifies the top part of the heart, making the top part of the heart squeeze. It then pushes the blood down to the bottom part of your heart, and the electricity in the bottom part of your heart then goes ahead and makes the bottom part squeeze. So lub dub for your entire life, every second of your life, or approximately every second. What atrial fibrillation is when the top part of your heart, that center that's supposed to say heartbeat, when it all of a sudden says, you know what, I don't want to make a heartbeat anymore. And the nice thing about it is there's about 300 other areas in the top part of your heart that immediately volunteer to be in charge. The problem is they all fire at the exact same time or in a random order. And so instead of this nice progression of electricity through your heart, it's a randomness of the electricity. And when there's randomness, the heart muscle doesn't know how to squeeze, and it actually just fibrillates. It just shakes a little bit. When that happens, number one, the heart can go very, very fast. And so we have to slow the heart rate down. Number two, because the top part of the heart is not squeezing the way it's supposed to be, blood clots tend to form. And so we put you on blood thinners. We have ways of actually, with a small procedure, stopping your heart from having atrial fibrillation. And it's successful in 80 to 90% of cases. But for a lot of people, we actually just try to control your heart rate, make sure your heart doesn't form these blood clots, and then see how your symptoms progress in that setting. So the direct two answers to the questions are, number one, is it a lifelong disease? It can be, and you can live well with it. I have marathoners who have atrial fibrillation, who are still in atrial fibrillation, or it can be cured by a procedure in certain cases.
That's great to know. Thank you so much. So honestly, we could spend all morning long here. Your both of your information are so important, and I want to thank you both for being so generous with your time. I did share both how to get in touch with Stony Brook Cardiology, also how to get in touch with Cona Law and Melissa, and I really encourage all of you to use this as impetus to put money, quote unquote, in the bank for your health, for your estate planning, to make sure that your future is long and healthy and beautiful as possible. Thank you so much, Dr. Skopicki, for being with us here today and teaching us so much about heart health. I know I've learned a lot that I'm going to take away from it. And Melissa, thank you so much for letting us know about those key important documents that we all should have, and to check where we are with them today. So I thank you both for your generosity of your time. It was a true pleasure. I also want to thank all of our attendees for joining us today. Thank you for coming to the webinar and spending time with us. You will get an email with contact information and the recording of this webinar, so you can watch it again and share it. And I wish you all to stay safe and stay healthy, and we'll look forward to seeing you on a future webinar.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.